Hi everyone. I came across Newswire, Hard Newswire, or H Newswire, and this is a featured story that is dated this month. It's November 2nd of 2020 by Stevie Ray Hansen, and this has to do with the state of Oregon, and the corrupter himself, George Soros. He has a lot in common with Kumo, Andrew Cuomo, the hell Satan governor of New York. And I'll tell you how. In Oregon, it looks to be the first state in the United States to decriminalize hard drugs like heroin, cocaine, and LSD. And it could be part of a ballot measure that voters will decide on during Election Day. I'm not sure how that went because we're still trying to figure out what the results of the votes in the system is, just because it got hijacked with fraud and being rigged by these fraud machines by Soros. So Soros has his hand in every way possible to take down our country, disarm us, destabilize us, so they can come in and take over. So this is an initiative. It's called Measure 110 that could drastically, Measure 110, that could drastically change the state's justice system. Those who are caught with hard drugs now will have an option of just paying $100 fine or attending new addiction recovery centers paid for with taxes from retail marijuana sales. So the reason, if you're asking why that is, hold on just a second. If you're asking why that is, it's because there's a method to this crazy man madness. The more crazy ass, drug addicted, insane criminals he can keep on the streets, because when he's paying them to carry out domestic terrorism attacks on our cities, he wants to make sure that they're going to be able to stay on the streets. So these people, he wants them to be on drugs if they're drug addicts. He wants them to be as crazy as possible, because they are reforming laws left and right. And I've said this when I made my Cuomo video, because Cuomo has reformed a lot of laws to keep these criminals on the street, hence his own domestic terrorists, Soros, Hollywood. They're all in bed together, left radicals, to keep these criminals on the streets. So by them only paying $100 and then taxes from the marijuana shops paying for the rehab, it's an excellent way for his domestic terrorists to keep on terrorizing. So under the new measure, possession of less than 1 gram of heroin or meth, 2 grams of cocaine, 12 grams of what's psilocybin, 40 doses of LSD, Oxycontin or methadone, and 1 gram of MDMA would all be decriminalized. Now, countries like Portugal, the Netherlands, and Switzerland have already implemented similar decriminalizations. For instance, in Portugal, the new saw, or the change, saw no surge in new drug use. So let me repeat that. So in Portugal, the change saw no surge in drug use. In fact, drug deaths fell while the number of people in the country treated for addiction rose 20% between 2001 and 2008. Then the numbers stabilized, I guess. So in the United Nations, Chief Executives Board for Coordination announced in 2019 that it would also promote alternatives to conviction and punishment in appropriate cases, including decriminalization of drug possession for personal use, in order to address prison overcrowding, and over incarceration by people accused of drug crimes. The new proposed measure in Oregon has the backing of the Oregon Nurses Association. Look, I don't give a damn what these associations are called. They're all compromised by the left, by left radicals, by Soros, CCP. They're all compromised. Same thing with the Police Association here in Los Angeles. It's all compromised. So the Nurses Association backs the new measure in Oregon, it's a chapter of the American College of Physicians and the Oregon Academy of Family Physicians. So the groups contend that punishing people for drug use and addiction is costly and hasn't worked. More drug treatment, not punishment, is a better approach. So on the other side of the argument is 24 district attorneys who claim the measure recklessly decriminalizes possession of the most dangerous types of drugs and will lead to an increase in acceptability of dangerous drugs. And you know, Gavin Newsom reforms these laws the same way for pedophiles. All these governors, left radicals, are under the same umbrella of agenda. And I keep saying it because people don't, it's some people who've never heard of what's going on can't understand it. So I repeat a lot of things in my videos. So in Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt argued back, saying misguided drug laws have created deep disparities in the justice system. Arresting people with addictions is a cruel punishment because it slaps them with a lifelong criminal record that can ruin their lives. Jimmy Jones, executive director of Mid-Waldemonte Valley Community Action Group that helps the homeless, said, every time that this happens, not only does that individual enter the criminal justice system, but it makes it very difficult for us on the back end to house any of these folks, because a lot of landlords won't touch people with recent criminal activity. And they won't touch people with possession charges. So these domestic creating terroristic powers that be, Soros is having DAs and stuff back his reforming of laws. They're all in bed together to keep these domestic terrorists housed, to make sure that while they're doing their drugs and terrorizing us, that they're going to be treated like a person who doesn't have a criminal record. Now, Jimmy Jones, executive director of, okay, so I just spoke about him. So then he continued to say, landlords simply won't know when their renters have a hard drug problem. I don't know. It sounds crazy. So George Soros, Michael Bloomberg must be exempt from laws and the undermining of the American Constitution. I don't see Trump or his administration making any effort to stop Satan soldiers. So there is an undertone That's not been addressed. George Soros and company, the devil's servants, are wreaking havoc. So force is now the only rule remaining in the deep state controlled America. Everything has collapsed, almost including the integrity of our voting and our election system. Okay, so let's not forget free speech, no fair trial. I haven't had a fair trial. I was almost put in prison for Scientology people jumping on my car, Antifa style. I didn't have a lawyer I didn't have the money or access to my money to have a lawyer represent me. And they wanted to throw me in prison. And they were trying to put down my throat that I'd try to hit somebody when there was video and medical records showing that didn't happen. And now I have a very bad mark on my record, despite there is evidence. Yet they're paid domestic terrorists, George Soros paid domestic terrorists, a slap on the hand. Not even a slap on the hand. They're giving these domestic terrorists a little massage on the hand, and then they get to go back on the streets and commit their crimes against Americans for the agenda of the left radicals, George Soros, and everybody who wants to take over this country. So everything's collapsed. No free speech, no fair trial, no system of justice, no reasonable expectation of human rights anywhere. Nope, because I get my ass beat by these people. I've been crippled for 6 months. My hand almost broke when they hit me with a very hard object across the street, I think back in May. No, it was June, I think. Or was it July? July 1st, I think. I have a police report. So everything they're talking about, I can relate. I understand because I've lived it. So there's no fair elections. There's no trustworthy news. No legitimate Wall Street operations. No real public education. No clean food, and threats from the elitists or elitists. I can't even leave my house without getting gang stalked. So their demonic lieutenant, George Soros, understands the meaning of overwhelming the system. It will eventually collapse, law and order. George Soros apparently is exempt from laws and the undermining of the American Constitution. And what's heartbreaking is I agree with this author. And it worries me when I say what I'm about to say is I don't see Trump or his administration making any effort to stop these Satan soldiers. And I'll tell you why. They've distracted our president with all kinds of witch hunts and BS for a long time, left and right, left and right, left and right. Meanwhile, he's been keeping the wheel spinning of being a president and making a lot of amazing changes. But where our president has lacked is cracking down on the very sources of corruption that is not, and I mentioned this in my past videos, that has infiltrated our system and our government and our cities and our police stations and our district attorneys and our judges and so on and so forth. Because our president was so distracted with all the witch hunts he was facing from the very top people around him that we still have Soros on the bottom end infiltrating from other areas, that both of those corruptions, which are basically one, have overflown into the totality of our functioning system here in America. And now our president can't even have a fair election. And now it's affecting our president. So I have said this on Twitter. Our system is infested with corruption. When I got assaulted across the street July 1st, I think it was July 1st, I have a police report. The police told that the manager not to give me the video of my assault. I have part of the assault on Twitter. I posted it on Twitter. But the full assault got caught on the camera at the business. And I just talked to the manager today. And he told me he wouldn't give me the video. And I said, well, if I have a lawyer subpoena at your ass, you're going to have to hand it over. And he said, oh, well, I don't have the video. So this is the kind of injustice. Because the police said they were going to get the video. And then after that, they never talked to me again. So this is the kind of injustice I've experienced. And these domestic terrorists are allowed to follow me to my jobs, spread rumors, go to my job, wait for me during my breaks, wait for me when I have to leave, go to work, and terrorize me. And the cops don't do shit. Pisses me off. Ruined my life. So, you know, George Soros knows the meaning of overwhelming a system that's going to eventually collapse law and order. And that's what's happened. And it's overflowed. It's overflowed the top of the pot. The pot has been boiling. It's overflowing. Now we might lose our country for good because of election fraud. So Donald Trump, please, there has to be active action on this deep state. George Soros, forget about putting him in custody and interrogating him. The minute he stops interrogating him, put him to death. This guy is in bed with Hollywood, CCP, Scientology. They all attack people. They all pay people to attack people who talk about the injustices, the cruelty, the attacks against human and civil rights. It's happened to me. I'm not allowed to even have a normal life because they're stalking me all the time. They hack at my phone. They listen to me through my phone. They have my manager here doing it. My manager is protecting these Scientologists who have stalked and harassed me and has threatened me many times to evict me when I stand up for myself by videotaping the very actions that they've done against me. I have the paperwork and text messages to prove it. But when I try to find a lawyer to help me and they find out what it's for, they don't want to do it. And I still got to think of a way to come up with the money to fight this. So our president is going to have to start cracking down on George Soros. He needs, listen guys, some countries had ISIS. They had al-Baghdadi. President Trump got him. They got him. Okay, so listen, now we got George Soros. We need to get this guy. And we need to hold him captive in custody and not ever let him go. And at some point when he stops talking or when the time is right, he needs to be put down. He's not welcome in a lot of other countries around the world because he's a lunatic. He destroys democracies. He destroys countries from the inside out. He gets people like Harris Faulkner to protect him. She's probably part of the trafficking and pedophile system too. I wouldn't be surprised if you look at her face, it gets more evil by the day. So George Soros is a Hungarian-American investor, business, what's Magenta, Magnet, M-A-G-N-A-T-E, and philanthropist. He's considered by some to be one of the most successful investors in the world as of February 2017. So Soros has a net worth of $25.2 billion, making him one of the 30th richest people in the world. Now, this explanation can clear up why our country has rapidly gone downhill in the last 7 years and who are responsible. So, there's an article by Steve Croft. He's a 60 Minutes journalist. So, I'm supposed to read this and pass it on. His investigative reporting has garnered him much acclaim, including the 3 Peabody Awards and 9 Emmy Awards, one of which was the Emmy of Lifetime Achievement. You can understand what is happening to America after reading this. And he writes, "May God have mercy upon our nation." Glenn Beck has been developing material to show all the ties that George Soros has through the nation and world along with his goals. So it says it begins to piece together the rise of Obama and his behavior in the leading nation, along with many members of Congress, in particular the Democrats, such as the election of Pelosi, and as the minority leader in Congress. So it says, if you've ever wondered where Obama came from and just how he quickly moved from obscurity to president, or why the media is selective in what we are told, here is the man who most probably put him there and is responsible. He controls President Obama's every move. Think this is absurd? Invest a few minutes of your time and read this. You won't regret it. Oh, this is a long article. Okay. So it says, who is Obama? Obama is a puppet, and here is the explanation of the man or demon that pulls his strings. It's not by chance that Obama can manipulate the world. After reading this and Obama's reluctance to accept help on the oil spill, you wonder if this spill is part of the plan to destroy the United States. It is. In history, nothing happens by accident. If it happened, you can bet somebody planned it. And that was by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So, okay, who is George Soros? He brought the market down in 2 days. Here is what CBS Steve Croft's research has turned up. But the main obstacle to a stable and just world order is the United States of America. So George Soros said the main obstacle to a stable and just world order is the United States of America. So I'm going to make this video in parts, maybe 3 parts, because it's a lot. So let's go with one evil human. Schwartz, the first name is G-Y-A-R-G-Y, better known to the world as George Soros, was born August 12, 1930 in Hungary. I'm not going to read all that. Okay, so when Hitler's henchman Adolf Eichmann arrived in Hungary to oversee the murder of that county's Jews, George Soros ended up with a man whose job was confiscating property from the Jewish population, and Soros went with him on his rounds. Now there's a blog you might want to keep an eye on. It's called soroswatch.com. Their mission. This blog is dedicated to all who have suffered due to the ruthless financial pursuits of George Soros. So now I'm going to go back to America. Soros has been actively working to destroy America from the inside out for some years now. People have been warning us. 2 years ago, sources have told us that Soros, an extremist who wants open borders, a one world foreign policy, legalized drugs, euthanasia, and on and on. This is off the charts dangerous. In 1997, Rachel Ehrenfeld wrote, Soros uses his philanthropy to change, or more accurately, deconstruct the moral values and attitudes of the Western world, and particularly the American people. His open society is not about freedom. It's about license. His vision rejects the notion of ordered liberty in favor of progressive ideology and of rights and entitlements. This guy's the devil. Perhaps the most important part of these whistleblowers are David Horowitz, Richard Poe, their book The Shadow Party. It outlines and details how Soros hijacked the Democratic Party and now owns it lock, stock, and barrel. Soros has been packing the Democratic Party with radicals, AOC, so just to name one, Pelosi. 2, Soros has been packing the Democratic Party with radicals, ousting moderate Democrats for years. The shadow party became the shadow government, which recently became the Obama administration. Discover Networks, or discoverthenetworks.org, writes, by his Soros' own admission, he helped engineer coups in Slovakia, Croatia, Georgia, and Yugoslavia. When Soros targets a country for regime change, he begins by creating a shadow government, a fully formed government in exile, ready to assume power when the opportunity arises. The shadow party is built in America, greatly resembles those he has created in other countries prior to instigating a coup. November of 2008 edition of German magazine Der Spiegel, in which Soros gives his opinion on what the next president of the United States should do after taking office. I think we need a large stimulus package. Soros thought around $600 billion would be about right. Soros also said that, I think Obama presents us a great opportunity to finally deal with global warming and energy dependence. The U.S. needs a cap and trading system with auctioning licenses for emission rights. Although Soros doesn't yet own the Republican Party like he does the Democrats, make no mistake, his tentacles are spread throughout the Republican Party as well. Soros is a partner in the Carlyle Group, where he has invested more than $100 million, according to an article by the Baltimore Chronicle. And it's run by a veritable who's who of former Republican leaders, from CIA Frank Carlucci to CIA head and ex-president George Bush Sr. In late 2006, Soros bought about 2 million shares of Halliburton, Dick Cheney's old stomping grounds. When the Democrats and Republicans held their conventions in 2000, Soros held shadow party conventions in the same cities at the same time. In 2008, Soros donated $5 billion to the Democratic National Committee, DNC, to ensure Obama's win and wins for many other Alinsky-trained radical rules anti-American socialists. George has been contributing $1 billion plus to the DNC since Clinton came on the scene. Soros had dirtied both sides of the aisle, and trust me. Okay, I think this video is gonna end, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a part 2, guys. I'll see you on the next video. I don't know if it hasn't ended yet. Let me see. If it does end, I'm gonna do a part 2 from where I leave off. So Soros has had a long connection with the CIA, and also he's involved with the MSM mainstream media, the entertainment industry. He owns 2.6 million shares of Time Warner, and the various political advertising organizations he funnels millions to. In short, George Soros controls or influences most of the MSM, the mainstream media, or lamestream media. Little wonder they ignore the Tea Party, Soros' nemesis. As Matthew Van Dam writes, the liberal billionaire turned philanthropist has been buying up media properties for years in order to drive home his message to the American public that they are too materialistic, too wasteful, too selfish, and too stupid to decide for themselves how to run their own lives. So Poe says Soros' private philanthropy totaling nearly $5 billion continues undermining America's traditional Western values. His giving has provided funding of abortion rights, atheism, drug legalization, sex education, euthanasia, feminism, gun control, globalization, mass incrimination, gay marriage, and other radical experiments in social engineering. Some of the many NGOs, non-government organizations that Soros funds with his billions are MoveOn.org, the Apollo Alliance, Media Matters for America, the Tides Foundation, the ACLU, ACORN, PDIA, which is Project on Death in America, La Raza, and many more. For a complete list and brief descriptions of the NGOs, go to discoverthenetworks.org. So without Soros' money, would the Saul Alinsky's Chicago machine still be rolling? Would SEIU, ACORN, and La Raza still be pursuing their nefarious activities? Would big money and lobbyists still be corrupting government? Would our college campuses still be retirement homes for 1960 radicals? America stands at the brink of an abyss, and that fact is directly attributable